What happens when a black woman from small-town Alabama walks into a billion-dollar tech firm, only to realize no one knows she's their new CEO? The glass doors at Holston and Myers Tech whispered open just before 7:45 a.m. A woman stepped through, unnoticed by most, but already watching everything. Tamika Holloway carried a navy canvas tote on her shoulder. Her gray dress was simple but sharp, her well-worn flats a quiet testament to the gravel roads she'd walked long before corporate hallways. Her natural curls were tied back in a modest puff. A thin silver cross rested against her collarbone. To the untrained eye, she looked ordinary, and that was exactly the point. A man in a charcoal suit glanced up from his phone as she passed. His eyes flicked to her face, then just as quickly returned to his screen. Two women near the elevators exchanged a knowing glance, the kind of look people think goes unnoticed. But Tamika noticed everything. "Who let the intern in this early?" someone muttered behind her. She didn't flinch. She'd heard worse back in Monroeville, Alabama, where her high school principal once told her to be realistic after she said she wanted to apply to Howard. The lobby gleamed with glass and polished stone. A tall fiddle-leaf fig filled one corner, and a massive LED screen displayed company updates. Tamika took it all in. This was the company she'd been hired to fix. But not today. Today was for watching, for seeing who people were when they thought she was nobody. Just as she reached the security desk, a man in his 40s cut in front of her, coffee in one hand and a dry cleaning bag in the other. "Glad you're early. Can you hang this in the marketing storage room?" he said, not even making eye contact. "Try not to wrinkle it this time, okay?" Tamika blinked. "Excuse me? You're the temp, right? Cynthia sent you?" he asked, still not looking at her. Then he dropped the hanger into her hand and walked away without another word. Tamika looked down at the suit, tailored, expensive, irrelevant. She smiled softly, draped it over a chair, and kept walking. A young woman nearby, blonde ponytail, AirPods in, raised an eyebrow. "You're supposed to take that upstairs. Third floor. Marketing." Tamika turned to her, voice calm and clear. "I'm not the temp." The woman froze, her smirk vanishing. The elevator dinged. A stocky man inside sipped an energy drink and gave Tamika a quick once-over. "You lost?" "No, sir." "You here for admin onboarding?" "HR is on too." "I know where I'm going," she said, stepping in and pressing the button for floor 12. He raised an eyebrow. "That's executive." "I know." What she didn't know yet, what none of them knew, was how deep the rot ran on floor 12, and how fast she'd need to expose it. When the elevator opened, Tamika stepped into a corridor of smoked glass, cold lighting, and silence. This floor didn't just house executives, it broadcasted power, and already she felt eyes on her. Down the hall, four men stood near the espresso machine, laughing louder than necessary. One of them noticed her and elbowed his friend. "She lost?" he snorted. Tamika ignored them and walked toward the large door marked Executive Conference Room. A receptionist in her 20s, perfect makeup and sharp nails, stood up. "Hi, are you delivering something?" "No." Catering?" "No." The receptionist hesitated. "This area is for executive staff only." Tamika leaned in slightly. "I know. That's why I'm here." Before the receptionist could respond, a man in a sleek suit strode down the hallway, phone to his ear. He stopped mid-step when he saw her. "You're early," he said, lowering the phone. Alan Brewster, CFO, 12 years with the company. He'd assumed the board would name him CEO. Tamika nodded. "Good morning, Mr. Brewster." His brow furrowed. "And you are?" "Tamika Holloway." A pause. "Oh, okay. The auditor from the consulting firm?" "No," she said calmly. "I'm your new CEO." The air shifted. The receptionist froze. The men near the espresso machine stopped laughing. Alan stared. "I'm sorry. What?" Tamika pulled out her badge. Her name. Her title. Chief Executive Officer. Clear as day. Alan cleared his throat and stepped aside. "Right. This way." Inside the conference room, Tamika set her tote beside the head chair, but didn't sit yet. She turned to Alan. "I'd like to start the meeting at 9 a.m. sharp. Please notify the executive team." Still dazed, he nodded. "Yes, of course." The door clicked shut behind him. Alone for the first time, Tamika let out a slow, steady breath. This wasn't new. She'd spent her entire life entering rooms where people didn't expect her to belong. But this time, she wasn't here to belong. She was here to lead. A knock on the door. A woman entered, 50s, sharp eyes, red-framed glasses. "I heard what happened outside," she said. "You handled that well." Tamika looked up. "Thank you." The woman stepped forward and offered her hand. "Janice Greer, head of legal." Tamika shook it, firm and sure. "You're the first person today who didn't ask why I was here." Janice smiled. "That's because I already read your file. You built an agri-tech startup in rural Alabama, sold it for 8 figures before 30. I don't need to see your shoes to know you're qualified." Tamika let out a small laugh. Janice tilted her head. "You ready for the wolves?" "I grew up around snakes," Tamika said. "Wolves don't scare me." But Janice knew something Tamika didn't yet. This wasn't just a broken culture. It was a war zone, and some people didn't want her there at all. By 10 a.m., the second folder landed on Tamika's desk. "Internal audit reports from Q2, Janice said, her expression tight. "Nothing that'll surprise you, but it's worse than what you presented this morning." Tamika opened the folder and began flipping through. Inflated budgets. Consultant fees doubled with no explanation. Vendor invoices from companies that didn't seem real. "This doesn't look like mismanagement," Tamika murmured. "This looks intentional." Janice gave a single nod. "Some of it is. We found backdoor deals, departmental kickbacks, nothing flashy, just a few thousand here, a few thousand there. But it adds up. We're talking 6 figures." Tamika closed the folder slowly. "You think Brewster knows?" Janice's eyes didn't waver. "He doesn't just know, he's in it." Tamika leaned back in her chair. She wasn't shocked. Not really. Alan had been cold the moment she walked in, but that chill hadn't come from resentment. It came from fear. Fear that she'd see too much. "I can't fire him without proof," Tamika said under her breath. "No," Janice agreed, "but you can dig. Quietly, I can help." Tamika studied her. "Why are you helping me?" Janice shrugged. "I've been here 10 years. I watched this place rot from the inside out. Nobody ever had the guts to do anything about it. But you walked in and you didn't flinch. That matters. And honestly," she glanced toward the frosted glass walls, "I'm tired of pretending this is normal." Tamika nodded slowly. "All right then, let's get to work." For the next 2 hours, the two women sat shoulder to shoulder, digging through spreadsheets, combing through vendor logs, tracing signatures. Tamika took notes, asked questions, built a timeline, and the deeper they went, the clearer it became. This wasn't carelessness. This was a closed circle of senior staff rewarding friends, silencing dissent, and funneling company money like it belonged to them. Around 6 p.m., Tamika stood and stretched. Her stomach rumbled. She hadn't eaten since breakfast. She packed her tote, turned off the lights, and walked the dim hallways of Holston and Myers. Most cubicles were empty now. A few computer screens blinked in sleep mode. The building was silent until she passed the break room. Inside, hushed voices, barely whispers, but unmistakably sharp. "She's not going to last." "No way! Did you see Alan's face this morning? He's already making calls." "CEO or not, she's not one of us. They'll push her out before next quarter." Tamika didn't stop, didn't say a word, but she heard every syllable. In the parking garage, she sat in her car and stared at the steering wheel. Thought about her father's hands, calloused, stained with red Alabama soil. Thought about what he used to say. "You don't pull weeds to be polite. You pull them so the good stuff has a chance to grow." She started the engine. What she didn't know was that while she was bracing for war in the boardroom, someone had already started one behind her back. The next morning, Tamika arrived early. No dry cleaning handed to her, no sideways smirks, just silence, like the building was holding its breath. She stepped into her office and found Janice already waiting. "We've got something," Janice said, tapping a flash drive on Tamika's desk. Tamika sat. "How bad is it?" "Worse than we thought," Janice said. "Alan's been funneling contracts through a shell vendor registered under his brother-in-law's name. Been going on for months." Tamika's jaw tightened. "That's embezzlement." Janice nodded grimly. "And that's not all. Jason Feld, your new buddy from yesterday, he's been claiming referral bonuses under fake names. Paid himself out 5 times last quarter. HR fraud Tamika took a deep breath. She should have been furious, but truthfully, she was ready. I want a full report. Every name, every transaction, who signed what, when. You'll have it by noon, Janice promised. Then after a pause, you might want to bring in legal counsel. This isn't going to go down easy. Tamika stood. I didn't come here for easy. At 12:45 p.m., she called an emergency executive meeting. By 1:15, the conference room filled with familiar faces, some annoyed, some curious. Jason walked in late, protein bar in one hand, phone in the other. All right, what's the fire drill? He muttered, slumping into his seat. Tamika didn't sit. She stood at the head of the room, folder in hand, remote in the other. I'm going to be very clear, she began. Over the past 48 hours, I've reviewed documents showing serious financial misconduct by multiple executives in this room. A low murmur swept across the table. Jason scoffed. We doing this again? What? Somebody forgot to expense a sandwich? Tamika clicked the remote. A spreadsheet filled the screen. Names, dates, vendor IDs, dollar amounts. Mr. Feld, she said calmly, this is your name. And this, she pointed, is the vendor you claim to refer 5 separate times. Problem is, that vendor doesn't exist. And the bank account it's tied to? Registered under a fake LLC owned by your cousin in Tampa. Jason's mouth opened, closed. He blinked. Tamika turned to Alan Brewster. These 10 contracts, she said, flipping pages, were approved under your credentials, all routed through a company that didn't exist until 3 months ago, registered to your brother-in-law's home address. Alan's face drained of color. This is absurd, he stammered. No, Tamika replied. It's documented, confirmed, and already under external legal review. Silence, thick and sharp. I'll give each of you the chance to speak, Tamika continued, but not to me. You'll be speaking to federal investigators. Janice stood and placed sealed folders on the table. Your company emails are locked. System access is suspended. Effective immediately, your roles are under formal review. Jason stood, voice shaking. You can't do this. You're not. I am, Tamika said, cutting him off. Exactly who I said I was. And the board gave me full authority to investigate and act. You didn't believe me on Monday. Maybe now you do. Alan tried to speak, tried to rally the room, but no one followed. His voice fell flat. No allies. Just silence. Tamika gathered the documents. If anyone else has something to admit, my door's open. But understand this isn't a threat. She looked around the room, voice steady. It's a clean start. She walked out. Just like that. But not everyone was grateful, and one of them was about to take it personal. Over the next 2 weeks, Holston and Myers held its breath. Jason Feld's office was cleaned out by 3 p.m., the same day. Alan Brewster was escorted out by security the next morning. No press release, no send-off, just a quiet walk past stunned employees. Whispers flew like sparks. Slack channels went silent. Everyone waited to see what Tamika Holloway would do next. She didn't bring in a wrecking ball. But the foundation? It was already shifting. She didn't just shake things up. She literally rolled in the change. The following Monday, Tamika wheeled a stack of folding chairs into the middle of the main floor. No emails, no formal invites, just an open circle. 20 employees showed up from all corners of the company. Tech, sales, support, even janitorial. There were no titles, no agenda, just people. I want to know what this place feels like, she told them. No filters, no sugarcoating. If this company were a person, how would you describe them? A young man from IT raised his hand. Fake. An older woman from customer service nodded. Exhausting. Someone else muttered. Clicky. They talked. She listened. No phones, no laptops, just notebooks and raw truth. Tamika made those listening circles a regular thing. Every other day, different teams, different voices, and she asked the kinds of questions no previous CEO had ever dared to ask. What does respect look like here? How do you know your work matters? What's the last thing that made you want to quit? She didn't take notes to look busy. She took them because she intended to follow through. And people noticed. One evening, long after most had gone home, Janice walked by Tamika's office and stopped in her tracks. Tamika was standing at a whiteboard, sketching out a new office layout. "You're redesigning the floor plan?" Janice asked. Tamika nodded. "No one collaborates because departments are boxed in like silos. That's not structure. That's isolation." She wiped part of the board clean and added, "No more corner offices." Janice raised an eyebrow. "Even yours?" Tamika smiled. "Especially mine." By the third week, the mood inside Holston and Myers had shifted. People weren't just watching Tamika anymore. They were following her. HR started receiving thank you emails, something they hadn't seen in years. Mid-level managers began asking for feedback instead of barking orders. Then she launched something called Open Friday. Any employee could book a 10-minute slot to speak with her directly. The first week's schedule filled up in under an hour. One conversation stood out. Letitia, a soft-spoken woman from operations, sat down across from Tamika, clearly nervous. "I don't really have a question," she began. I've never seen anyone up here who looks like me. Not just how you look, but how you carry yourself. I wanted to say thank you." Tamika leaned in. "Letitia, you belong in every room you walk into. You don't need my permission for that. But I'm glad you told me." Letitia smiled, eyes glossy. "No one's ever said that to me." But just as the culture was beginning to bloom, a shadow started creeping in. An anonymous complaint began working its way up the chain, accusing Tamika of discrimination and unfair termination. The author had ties to the board, and by the time the complaint landed on their desk, Tamika had already caught whispers. Janice slid the printed email onto Tamika's desk. "Alan," she said flatly, "anonymous, but the phrasing? It's him. Guaranteed." The complaint accused Tamika of retaliation, suggesting her firings were racially or personally motivated. It was polished just enough to sound official and just bitter enough to sting. Tamika read it quietly, then exhaled. "I knew this might happen. That's why I documented everything. Every meeting, every decision, every sign-off." Janice nodded. "This isn't really about that complaint. It's about who still wants the old system back." The board called for a formal review. Just protocol, they said. But everyone knew what it really was. A power check. On the day of the review, Tamika walked into the boardroom alone. No legal team, no PR rep, just a black binder under her arm and the calm demeanor of someone who's weathered bigger storms. 7 board members sat across from her. One, a silver-haired man in a crisp blue tie, cleared his throat. "Ms. Holloway, we're here to ask about your first-month decisions. Some concerns have been raised." Tamika placed the binder on the table. "Everything you need is in there. Timelines, documentation, witness statements, legal counsel sign-offs. Every termination was based on verified misconduct." Another board member, a woman in a green blazer, leaned forward. "This isn't just about procedure. Some feel the company's tone has changed too fast, that certain voices feel excluded." Tamika's jaw clenched, just for a second, but her voice didn't waver. "Let me be clear. This company operated for years like an exclusive club. A few people made the rules and everyone else kept their head down. That's not leadership. That's survival. And I wasn't hired to maintain survival. I was hired to create change." She opened the binder to a series of charts. Employee engagement is up 46%. HR complaints are down by more than half. We've saved $1.2 million in misallocated contracts. And for the first time in 5 years, we've retained our top engineering talent. She looked each board member in the eye. "I'm not sorry the tone has changed. It needed to." Silence filled the room. Then one board member spoke, a quiet, older black woman who hadn't said a word until now. "We've waited years for someone to say that out loud." The silver-haired man cleared his throat again, this time more softly. "Thank you, Ms. Holloway. We'll be in touch shortly." Tamika nodded, gathered her binder, and walked out with her head high. 3 days later, the board sent their official response. The review was closed. No further action. Her decision stood. Tamika didn't throw a party, didn't make a statement. The next morning, she walked into the break room with a box of fresh donuts and sat at the table next to the interns. "Y'all like chocolate glaze or nah?" she asked with a grin. A guy from analytics chuckled. "I knew you were different." Tamika looked up. Different doesn't mean temporary. I'm here to stay. But what truly stuck with people wasn't the policy changes, the floor plans, or the speeches. It was that she showed up day after day, even when she was doubted, challenged, and quietly targeted. And not once did she raise her voice. A month later, Holston and Myers looked the same on the surface. The building still gleamed. The job titles hadn't changed. But the energy, that was completely different. People who once stayed silent now spoke up. Departments that never interacted began sharing ideas over lunch. And Friday all-hands meetings, once dull and lifeless, had become real conversations. Sometimes messy, often honest, but real. Every now and then, someone would stop her in the hallway, not to ask for anything, but just to say, "Thank you." Not because she saved the company, but because she made it human again. Tamika never bragged. She didn't need to. Her presence was proof enough. You can be soft-spoken and still strong, underestimated and still unshakable, kind without being naive. Her story wasn't just about making it to the top. It was about what she did when she got there. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't shrink to fit in. She saw the system, named it, and changed it from the inside out. And maybe that's the real takeaway. The world will try to box you in. It'll measure you by how you look, where you're from, how you talk, or what you don't have. And when you walk into that room, whatever your room is, there will always be someone who thinks you don't belong. But your job isn't to prove them wrong. Your job is to do the work anyway. And let your results do the talking. Because when it's time for real change, the loudest voice isn't always the one that leads. It's the one that listens, builds, and refuses to back down. So if you've ever felt invisible, underestimated, or written off, remember this. Keep going. Keep building. Keep showing up. Because one day they'll realize you were the CEO the whole time. If this story moved you, share it. Someone out there might be walking into their day one, not knowing they're about to change everything.